Oh, good afternoon, everyone. How are you folks doing?
Good.
Glad to hear it. Now, I'm sure that for the most part, you folks are familiar with cannons, aren't you? Seen them before in films and documentaries and all over historic places, like that cannon right there on that pedestal. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of cannon that you've seen time and time again. It's called a muzzle-loading cannon, which means everything needed to make that kind of gun work goes down the muzzle of the gun from the front to the back. So the powder, wadding, and the shot itself. Now, our cannon, in contrast to that, is quite different. It's called a 6-pound breech-charged muzzleloader, which I know is a bit of a mouthful. So you could just call it a 6-pounder like they did and like we do. And this is why right here. 6 pounds of iron. Now when we're loading this kind of cannon, this is in fact the only thing that goes down the barrel of that gun from the front to the back. Now, you folks are looking at this, and you really can't be that impressed by it, can you? Small as cannonballs go, right? And quite frankly, not a whole lot to be impressed about. Now, it doesn't bounce, and it doesn't blow up either, so don't look at me like that. There's no exploding shells for cannons in the 16th century, despite what Hollywood would like you to think. But what it would do is come out of the barrel of this gun traveling at 400 miles an hour, with a range of up to 9/10 of a mile. Now, give you folks an idea. 9/10 of a mile from where we're all standing. That bridge right there to the south, the Bridge of Lions. So from here to there, you can hit that bridge somewhere. I couldn't tell you what car would go flying into the bay, but half that distance, so about a half mile to 3/4 of a mile, we could hit a 4-foot square target basically every time we tried. Now, because of the way this cannon operates, not only can we hit the bridge or that target, but we could do something that's practically unheard of in the 16th century. We could hit them as fast as 3 to 4 times in a single minute. Look at the back of the cannon. A large vertical iron cylinder there with rings on it for handles. In English, that's called a breech mug. In Spanish, it's called a servidor. And that's where the gunpowder and the wadding goes, and that in fact gets loaded into the back of the cannon. Got one just like it in there already. So like a cartridge, it gets slid into place, locked in with a wooden breech block, and then the gun is effectively loaded except for one minor detail. That one. That's right. We are not going to roll a cannonball down the front. Shucks, right? Yeah. We're willing to put on a show for our guests, but we're not willing to get it rusted for you, dressed like we are. Sorry, not sorry. And the fishermen and Coast Guard out there really can't take a joke either, so there's that. Now, what the Spanish would have done is had 5 or 6 of those servidors preloaded before battle. And a well-trained crew of 5 men, simply by rotating through them after every shot, could achieve that 3 to 4 rounds a minute, which, like I said, for the 16th century is fast. It is essentially rapid fire. It is much faster than those muzzle loaders that you folks are all too familiar with. Or maybe in that same minute, the best you're going to do with a well-trained veteran crew is 2 shots. And the reason for that is after every shot with a muzzle loader, someone has to come along with a wet sponge on a long stick and run it down the barrel to extinguish any remaining embers. Because if you don't, the next time you go to reload it, guess what's going to happen to you? That's right, you're going to blow yourself up. Which is, of course, ineffective, to say the least. And now, speaking of ineffective, we have one cannon here. Now, I promise you all that the Spanish were much better about it. They brought 20 cannons ashore to defend the settlement of St. Augustine. This open field right there behind you, folks. Now, those 20 cannons work just like this one. So, if you do the math on that, 20 cannons, each one doing 3 to 4 shots a minute, comes out to 60 to 80 of those less than impressive cannonballs flying down range per minute. Now, that's impressive, right? But maybe you're still not entirely sold on the idea. But if a big pirate ship sailed through here, 3 masts, whole bunch of buccaneers on board, a row of 25 to 35 guns that are 6 to 8 times bigger than that one, what are 60 to 80 of those little things going to do against that? Nothing. But they didn't have to. When the Spanish got here, they found a sandbar that blocked the mouth of the inlet, and passage through that sandbar was only 9 feet deep at high tide. That meant that big ships, like the San Pelayo, for instance, Pedro Menendez's flagship, which was a 900-ton Spanish galleon, couldn't pass through the inlet and sail up to the shore to drop troops and supplies. So what they had to do was anchor the big ships out in the Atlantic and lower the ships' rowboats, like that chalupa we have moored over there next to the pier. And they had to row everything ashore to colonize this place. And likewise, if you wanted to attack, guess what you had to do? The same thing. So that comes out to 60 to 80 of those less than impressive cannonballs flying downrange per minute at men in little wooden rowboats. Now, that sounds like a death sentence, doesn't it?